Hey, what's up? I'm Mike Squires. This is Couches Podcast, episode number 184. My guest, Craig Montgomery. Now, Craig Montgomery might not be a household name across the country, but he's been around Seattle for years and years and years, and everyone in the music community there knows him. Um, if you've played at the Triple Door in the last, 15 years before the pandemic, then you encountered Craig. Craig's friendly disposition and professional approach to everything. Um, if you were around the 5 years before that, 5 or 10 years before that, you saw his incredible band, Number 13 Baby, which was a Pixies tribute band. Um, and he played the lead guitar part on that in that outfit. That was the first cover band that I ever saw where I was like, oh shit, I should maybe start a cover band. They're doing better than my band because it's built in. Good Lord. Um, and before that, he ran front of house sound for a bunch of bands, which included Nirvana through the explosive part of their career, as well as a number of other people. Weezer, the Posies, the Presidents of the United States of America. He named some other folks in our conversation. What a crazy ride. What a crazy, crazy ride. I had a great time talking with him. He recently appeared in a Couchers video for Just What I Needed. Because like a lot of people, he just commented on a video from before. Oh, if you ever do such and such, let me know. And he was a person that I had been wanting to talk to for a while anyway. And I was like, it's funny that you mentioned so and so because I'm building that song right now. It just so happened that Just What I Needed was getting built. So I invited him on and he was great. Craig's great. You're going to love this. You're going to love it because he's great. You're great. You know what's great? You're watching this and I'm rambling. Listen, thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting. If you are supporting Couch Riffs at patreon.com/Couch Riffs, thank you very much. I appreciate it. It's what makes this possible. You would be shocked if you knew, even like, I know this doesn't look like your evening news program or whatever, but I'm also not working with the resources that the evening news is working with. I'm working with a computer and an iPhone and a microphone. Your support helps make this happen. It helps make the videos happen. And I thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you a million times. Thank you for supporting Couch Riffs. It means a lot to me. I also want to thank Variety Coffee Roasters in Brooklyn, New York. Go check out Variety Coffee Roasters. It's the only place on Variety Coffee Roasters website where you can get a Couch Riffs coffee mug. And it's co-branded. It says Couch Riffs, has the original Couch Riffs logo on one side, and it says Variety Coffee Roasters on the other side. They're $10 each there. Or if you add it to your cart and you buy 2 boxes of coffee, their coffee comes in a bag inside of a box. It looks like a carton of smokes. It's pretty cool. If you buy 2 boxes of coffee and enter the code Couch Riffs at checkout, you get your mug for free. That's killer. So I drink their coffee every morning. I use it in producing a product that I make at work, and I love it. So thank you, Variety Coffee Roasters. You guys are great. Thank you to River City Guitars in Spokane, Washington. They're great. RiverCityGuitars.com, at River City Guitars on social media. Every day is a buying day. If you've got a collection, a vintage instrument, something used in boutique, give them a shout. Send them an email, sales.rivercityguitars@gmail.com. Tell them I sent you, and they're going to treat you right. I would not send you anywhere that I wouldn't go myself. That includes Variety, River City, anywhere. I mean, I use Dunlop. I love Stag. I like nice stuff, man. So do you. I want you to have nice things. You deserve nice things. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget the golden rule. Don't be a dick. I can't believe the mess that just took. It's particularly embarrassing because I'm about 190 episodes in.
Yeah.
And I've probably only encountered frustrating audio stuff like this once or twice. And they've all been in the last couple months. And it's because I break that hard and fast rule that I already told you about.
Messing with things.
But how it's very perfect for me to have it go wrong with you.
Yeah. Well, we always got to try to make things different or better or whatever.
That's the problem. Improvement, is great and everything, but a lot of times there's a, 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
Mm-hmm.
But at least that's one forward.
Yeah.
3 steps and you get 1 step forward. That's wonderful.
Is it a problem I'm using my speakers and not my headphones? Is that okay?
No, it should be fine. So far, there hasn't been any audio cut out for us, so
or no
that's
feedback
good.
or anything. Okay.
Nah. How you doing? How's Seattle?
Seattle's really nice right now.
Yeah, it's a perfect time to be there.
79 degrees and sunny.
I miss
no wildfire smoke. None of that. Are you recording again?
I'm recording, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so careful of what you say. No, don't be careful.
I'll start being careful.
Don't be careful. Throw caution to the wind.
Yeah.
You just had a trip. Where'd you go? Was it a good trip?
It was a fun little trip. Is this for the show?
Yeah. We don't have to talk about it if you don't want to, if it's a personal trip.
No, it's a really nerdy thing. I went back to a place where I lived when I was a kid, and I watched a boat race.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
Are you from Washington?
I am. I'm a Washington kid.
I thought
I was born in Eastern Washington, and I spent a lot of time over there as a kid in some small and medium-sized towns, and then but also bounced in and out of Seattle, and then I permanently lived here from 8th grade on.
In Seattle?
I went to school like just outside of Seattle, and I moved into Seattle proper like as a young adult, like 22 years old.
Were you were playing music? Let's see. So let's back it up.
Okay, yeah.
You're most well known for being a sound engineer, live sound mixer. What do you technician?
Right, that's my career. I hate to call myself an engineer because I don't have an engineering degree, but people typically do say sound engineer.
Right.
I guess when you're working, you're engineering. But anyway, yeah, live sound has been my career. That's what I can do that people will pay me to do.
It's nice to have that.
Yeah.
But
so that's how I can make your day better.
But I sure hope so. Mm-hmm. You can't polish a turd, though, they say, and it's true.
I'm sure you get into that as we go down the road. So,
but you're a musician as well.
Well, of a sort, yeah. Like I'm not a musician like you, but I can hack around on the guitar a little bit.
My very first podcast guest said that the connection between and my amount of success as a musician is negligible compared to the amount of work that I've put in, and there are people much more talented than I am who have work at grocery stores or gas stations. The line, but yeah, the direct line between someone's musical talents and their popularity or their success is
right. It's not a one-to-one correlation there at all. But so I'm speaking strictly musicianship ability to play. Like I'm semi-professional at best. Uh,
When did you start playing?
I started playing guitar when I was 14.
That's a great time to start.
Yeah. But I never got any kind of formal training. I pretty much learned by ear and through some. I basically learned to play guitar with the Beatles complete book and a stack of Beatles records.
Nice.
Because when you know what the song is supposed to sound like, and then you can see the chord diagrams on the page and you can figure out, oh, okay, well that sounds right. No, that's totally wrong. And then
Right.
you just trial and error and figure it out from there. But I learned a lot. I always had, you know, an ear and an appreciation for music that came from my parents, but they weren't trained musicians.
Did they play music?
They were just fans. My dad played some music. Uh, he wasn't a very trained musician either. He liked to play in some kind of folk combos. Uh, but everything starts with my dad and my mom too. But my dad worked in radio broadcasting when I was growing up, so that's what I
Huh.
thought I wanted to do. But he also played in some folk combos. He was friends with the Kingsmen. One of his best friends in high school was one of the Kingsmen
Yeah. I bet you
in
heard about that a lot at the dinner table.
Yakima, Washington. And so my dad did radio broadcasting, but he also spent some time managing some bands in the late 60s, just some local bands around here and driving them around like the region.
Yeah.
And he also worked for, when he first moved to Seattle in, I think, 68 or 69, he was working for a concert promoter called Concerts West. And he had stories of, picking up Jose Feliciano at the airport or stuff like that. Um, but he was around. He was in town. I mean, like he knew all the people who were playing music in town. And then he went back into radio, never as like a music DJ, but more as he would be a news director and a sales manager. So he was doing that all through the time I was growing up. Um, my parents got divorced when I was 4, so my early years I lived with my mom, but idolized my dad, who I only got to see on
Right.
weekends and stuff. But I just thought he hung the moon. And but anyway, long story, moving around a lot. Uh, when I'm 14, I'm back living with my dad here just outside Seattle, and he's the sales manager at KISW at the time. And
Yeah.
this is the late 70s, early 80s when KISW ruled, you
Yeah.
know, Seattle's best rock. But one day, uh, so he was a sales manager and he was up at American Music, and somehow he ended up with this acoustic guitar in his possession. It wasn't a fancy one, but it played pretty well, and he brought it home. And it's really weird growing up around music, being such a huge music fan, whether it was my mom's place or my dad's, the radio was always on. My dad was always bringing home boxes full of 45s, stacks of albums that I would just read voraciously and listen to. And uh, it never occurred to me to actually try to play an instrument until then.
Right. Did
And
it seem like something that other people did?
yeah, other people did.
Right.
People on TV or
Right.
not me though, or people whose parents forced them to take piano lessons or something, or guitar lessons.
Sometimes I think as a kid, for me, seeing musicians was kind of like seeing an astronaut. It was like, well,
Right. Yeah.
that's what those people do, but I can't do that.
How old were you when you started?
Unachievable. Oh, which time, you know.
Oh. But I never, so I started like right at the beginning of high school, and there were other musicians in high school, and I sort of faked my way into the job of playing the bass for the jazz choir.
Yeah.
Um, I I couldn't sight read, but I could sit down with the music and learn a song or two. But I was sharing that with another guy, so I would sing half the time and play bass the other half of the time. But
Right.
he was a real bass player, so I would have him do the hard stuff. Um,
He was a bassist.
well, fortunately, I also made the choir as a singer, but and then uh, my best friends kind of turned me on to punk and new wave, so we were like messing around covering the Cars and the Clash and the Sex Pistols and stuff like that. And
Did you guys play
there,
gigs?
no, not yet. There was one guy at our school who could really play. Like he had a Strat and a Marshall half stack, and he was kind of a hole, but but he did tell me where he took his lessons, and so I tried to go and take lessons from this like really crusty old guy down in Renton, and it was just really unpleasant. And I only did it once
Right.
and never went back. He put sheet music in front of me. You know, the classic story of how do you get a guitar player to stop playing?
Yeah.
I was like, I can already play Beatles songs, you know, and now you're wanting me to learn to read one note. Of course, I should have stuck with it. But anyway, uh, it's really weird to be somebody who's played guitar for 42 years and still be, you know, not what I consider a real musician.
Oh, I mean, well, we can get into it later, but it's like it wasn't your focus for a long time.
For a long time, it wasn't, yeah. But it's funny because I know how to play what I can play. I don't try to play things that I can't play well, and I know how to make it sound good. So, you
Right.
know, I could be the rhythm guitarist in your punk rock band, but that's
Did
not.
you end up joining bands in the late 80s and or early 90s
Uh,
and gig?
yes, I did. Because well, the first band. So, like my best friend from high school and a couple other guys that we met working at a movie theater, we started a cover band, and that band did start gigging if you consider frat parties gigs.
Right.
But we played what we thought was cool, you know, all kinds of punk and new wave stuff, and you know, some clients really like that. So we were playing a lot of parties at the University of Washington and at Washington State. And for this particular cover band, I bought a sound system for us to play with, and that's what started me down the road to being a sound engineer.
That's how it started
Yeah,
because someone had to run it.
right.
Someone
Someone
had
had
to
to
set it
supply
up
it,
and
set it up, and do all that. So through that, I learned the basics of how sound systems worked. And I had the brilliant idea that when our band wasn't playing, I should rent out my sound system and myself to other bands. And it was through doing that that I met some of the bands in Seattle that were playing original music.
right.
And so the first band that I really, and also uh, my sister was a really social person. She had friends. She had a friend who was dating the drummer of a band called Room 9,
Mm-hmm.
whom you probably have heard of. But so, and they were like
Hey,
pretty
can I ask you a
prominent.
question real quick?
Uh huh.
Is your sister Carrie
Yes.
your sister? No, I mean, but is your I call your sister Carrie. Is that your sister Carrie
Uh,
from Solar Sister?
you would have to ask Ken Stringfellow that, but that's kind of at least there's a grain of truth in there somewhere. Yeah, because she and Ken were really close friends
Yeah.
in those years. Yeah,
Look at that.
it's true. So her best friend was dating a guy named Sean Allen, who was the drummer of Room 9. Room 9 was Ron Nine's band
Mm-hmm.
from Love Battery before Love Battery. They were like a psychedelic rock band. They played a lot in Seattle. And for some reason, they were looking for somebody to mix their shows at clubs. And my sister is with them and she says, "Hey, my brother's a sound man." And so they had me go and meet them at their practice space and, you know, run their little practice PA with the delay. They wanted to make sure that somebody was doing enough like delay on the vocals.
They
you
wanted
know,
to make sure that it was psychedelic enough.
sure. Yeah, yeah. And I was like, I know how to run a delay. So even though I wasn't 21 yet, I would tag along with them to the Rainbow and the Central. And it was through Room 9 that I met Pure Joy, Rusty Willoughby. And
Yeah.
he also wanted a lot of delay on his vocals. And so there were, you know, there were a handful of bands that liked what I was doing with Room 9 and asked me to take care of them too. And so I ended up doing a lot of Pure Joy and becoming pretty close with them and hanging out with them a lot. And then there was a time when
Can
that band,
can
sorry,
we
go
get
ahead.
let's get some perspective here really quick for
Okay.
people who don't understand when you say you bought a sound system.
Mm-hmm.
uh, a lot of people might think I've been to a street fair and
Yeah.
seen a stage with some like that's a sound system, right? But a PA, like I'm guessing you might have gone to American Music to buy your PA.
It was another music store. So the
Yeah,
one
you
that
might
I
have got
own,
a couple of PV towers
well,
and like an integrated mixer power thing.
pretty close. This was made by Fender. The one
Wow.
that I got. Yeah. Fender was making, small. So it was if it was a powered mixer, I think it was 12 channels, but it was actually shaped like a mixer, but the back of it was kind of big because the amps were built in.
Right.
The speakers were pretty big. They were square shaped though, and they had an 18 and 8 and horn. They were like a big square
They're
trapezoid.
big enough for a lead singer to jump on top of.
We had to put them up on something.
Yeah.
I didn't have separate subs, they did all I mean we overdrove the hell out of that thing. The clip lights were always on, but we would play parties with just that. I also had a couple of wedge monitors. So it was we
So
would mic
you had monitor mixes as well out of that mixer.
yeah, one monitor mix.
For people who want so for
Yeah.
people who are not familiar, most people who listen are musicians, but for people who are not familiar, they don't know what the hell we're talking about. And the thing is,
Yeah.
coming off of a stage, the sound gets routed in a couple of different ways. One routing goes out to the front of house so that the front of house mixer can mix the sound for the audience, and the other route goes to the monitor mixer if you're fortunate enough to have one,
Or you do it all from the same mixer.
right?
But yeah, it was you really think anybody watching your podcast doesn't already know that?
I don't know. I don't know.
I would take bets on that. So yeah, I did have a couple of wedge monitors. I had vocal mics and the kick, and we had keyboard direct and acoustic direct, and then everything else was just amps. But we would play, fairly good size rooms. If we played somewhere bigger, I would hire in another sound system, not mine. And
And
when I
would
was
you run it?
no, I would have somebody else do it. I would, like a sound company. But then when I was out with Room 9 and Pure Joy, it was at the clubs where they had systems there. I didn't bring mine hardly. There might be times when they would play somewhere outside or some party and I would bring mine. But anyway, after you asked, this was a long answer to you asked if I had joined some bands, and the answer was yes, because I was doing sound for Pure Joy, and then that band sort of blew up. Like Rusty's brother was in the band in that incarnation, and their drummer was Jim Honeycutt. And for whatever reason, that band blew up because they weren't getting along. Rusty and his brother were fighting, and Jim also quit. So it was only Rusty and Lisa left, and they needed to. And then they asked me to join the band on second guitar and some keyboards.
You were in fucking Pure Joy?
I was in Pure Joy. There's a Pure Joy album that wasn't released that we recorded called it later got called Unsung. But yeah, we recorded an album, and the guy who financed it ended up not putting it out. But I also brought over the drummer from my old cover band. His name was Darren Fish, and our cover band was called the Happy Campers. So Darren and I played in Pure Joy for a while, and we played some gigs. But then later they got a different drummer and they got Andy Davenhall and decided to just play as a trio. So I was out of Pure Joy.
Did you do sound again?
Well, at that time I had also sort of finished community college where I had been doing radio, and then I got an actual job in radio broadcasting, being the board op for Seattle Supersonics games.
Really?
That didn't last very long, but I was still doing.
What season was this? 89?
Like, I think 88, maybe
88. So who's the team then? Is this like
this was Tom Chambers, Dale Ellis, Xavier
McDaniel? Yeah.
Nate McMillan.
Dude.
The coach was Bernie Bickerstaff at that time.
Right.
So yeah, that didn't last very long though. And I was still doing sound for fun, things like that. The next job I got was my friend Ron Nine told me about how he was working at Muzak Corporation. So I went down and got a job at Muzak in the tape duplication department. And that's where I met all the Sub Pop guys. Jonathan and Bruce worked there. Ron worked there. Mark Arm worked there, and Tad Doyle, and I think Grant Ekman from the Walkabouts. And so
it was a place to work.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, and also during that time, I was doing DJ shifts on KCMU.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
What was your show?
Nothing special, just a regular show.
Like, what was your slot?
Various.
Do you remember?
I bounced around. Sometimes I was on weekends. Back then, it was all volunteers, and you only did once a week. It wasn't like now where they have professional people doing all week. So I got stuck in early morning a lot, like 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. or sometimes really late at night. I was pretty low on the totem pole there, but
that's pretty fun though. Was your dad into that? Did he think that was cool?
He thought it was pretty cool. Well, before that in community college, I had been at KBCS, which was a jazz station.
Yeah.
That's where I went to community college. And there I ended up like in leadership, being the music director and the program director. That's where I really learned a lot about jazz and became a jazz buff. So I do still like me some jazz. The nice thing about jazz is the songs are longer, they're 6 or 8 minutes. Then
you can have a bathroom break.
Right. You go to KCMU and the songs are 2-3 minutes. And the thing is, what you're supposed to do is prepare your show ahead of time, get all your records out, have them stacked up, know what you're going to play. Of course, I wouldn't do that. I would show up, half an hour before my shift.
Because you're an artist, man.
I was a slacker and always be scrambling. Oh, shit, what am I going to play? Oh, no, I've only got 30 seconds. What? But they did have like a heavy rotation and a new releases section. So you could always just pull out of there, but you can't fill the whole show with that. So you would have to have some ideas. I could do it a lot. I still have anxiety dreams about being on the radio and the record is running out and you don't have another record ready.
That's your anxiety dream.
It's one of them.
Right. That's incredible.
Another one used to be that you're outside the arena fighting through a crowd of people trying to get in,
The
and
show's going to start.
your band is on stage starting without you. It's like, oh no, they're gonna figure out they don't need me. Like,
I have the one where I'm on stage and they call out a song,
yeah.
like an audible, and I'm like, I don't know that. I don't know the song. I've
Yeah, that would be
never
too
heard
tough.
it.
Right, right. Um,
So this is 88, 89.
89. And so yeah, I'm working at Muzak with like, and this is right when, Sub Pop is really new. Bruce and John are bringing in like, here's the new Soundgarden record we just made, whatever. And
Yeah.
Mark Arm brings in, oh, we just made Touch Me, I'm Sick. Listen to this. And we're just like, oh, that's crazy. And Tad recorded his album. So those guys knew me around from doing sound. And I don't think they particularly asked me, but I said, hey, I'll come do sound for you. And they were like, yeah, whatever. So I'd show up, to the Mudhoney show and say, yeah, I'm going to do sound for Mudhoney. And, Tad's opening. Tad and I really hit it off. So like Tad was into having me do theirs. Uh, and then Nirvana would start coming up to town opening for those guys. And so that was how I met Nirvana,
Right.
playing at the Vogue or the Central kind of thing.
What,
So
what was the learning curve like? Because you have this 12 channel board.
Yeah.
Did you have outboard gear, or was there built in?
I had a delay.
You knew how to run the delay.
Oh, yep.
And so
a few times I went to like the Central or something, they would say, oh, we have some compressors. Where do you want to patch those in? I'd be like, I don't want compressors. Later, I did figure out what you could do with a compressor, but
that's good because eventually you ended up on some of the biggest stages in the world.
Yeah. So the learning curve was I had a pretty good handle of the basics, signal flow, and so it wasn't really a problem to get onto, the mixer that's at the Central Tavern. I
Right.
knew what the knobs did, but I also had, I think, like a vision for what I thought music should sound like, based on a lifetime of listening to all different kinds of music. And for me, as a fan, if I were standing there as a fan, I would want to hear and understand the person singing on stage,
Right.
It should sound musical, it should have pitch, it should be understandable. You want a connection with the person on stage. And it always seemed bizarre to me that sometimes that wouldn't be there because somebody thought that the kick drum should be killing you. And there's a person up there and their lips moving, but you can't hear what they're saying. Like, what's going on? I mean, that's wrong to me.
Well, that's a lazy person.
Well, I just think a lot of people who did live sound did not have the right agenda,
Right.
Like, so
There's a huge challenge in making music sound enjoyable night after night when you're playing in a different room. Because if you
in a live setting,
yeah,
yeah,
especially different, like you're going from different sized rooms, different sounding rooms, the
yeah,
construction of the room, the construction of the stage sound,
that's
like
true.
the volume.
So what I would do is get in there early with, at the time, a cassette of music, later a CD,
Right.
and also, so assume it's a place I've never been. So I'll go in, I'll play some music over the PA and start figuring out what it sounds like,
What the room sounds like.
Well, but also what the PA sounds like,
Right.
because I can't really change the room. You know, I can't say, oh, you need to put up a curtain there and knock down that wall. But you can see how the PA itself is reproducing music, right? Um, Maybe they've got the bass turned, the subs turned way up too high, or maybe the highs are out of phase, and maybe you can go and switch the wires around.
Is
So
this shit that you learned from a mentor or that you figured out or that you just sort of absorbed
uh,
through experience?
just kind of absorbed through experience. Not be when you see not being afraid to tweak stuff. Like my little mixer had graphic equalizers on it, so
Mhm.
I could play with those and see what those did to the sound. Um, I could, if it fed back, I could fix it with my graphic equalizer. So I understood the tools. So you go and you play your music. I'd play the Pixies "Gouge Away" and try to make that sound good, and do that either by messing with the crossover levels, low, mid, high in the system, messing with the graphic equalizer, get it to where I thought it sounded like music. And once you've done it with the music, then you would plug in a microphone and talk over it with your voice. So you're setting up the system to where it's reproducing music the way you want it to, basically. This um some people would get really scientific and shoot pink noise and use a real-time analyzer,
Right,
that shows you exactly what frequency ranges are there. And that's fine too, but really, at the end of it, you're using your ears.
right.
So I would do that. And then I would start setting up the mics on stage, start turning those up, seeing where it feeds back and cutting out those frequencies. So, and once you do that in enough clubs, then for me anyway, like moving up to bigger and bigger systems, I wasn't intimidated by that.
Was there ever a point when you walked into a room, even in the earliest years, where you felt intimidated or you were nervous approaching the equipment?
Uh, Not by the equipment, maybe, but just like the magnitude of what the show was going to be. Like maybe the first time I mixed somebody at the Paramount or something, I might have thought, oh, wow, I hope this goes well.
Right.
um, so, uh, well, and also, anytime you're at a show, there is the house engineer there, and I knew all those guys and got along with them well, and I was happy to ask for help or ask them what they thought if there was something
Right.
I needed help with. But um, it was it was never a technical problem.
Yeah.
And sometimes there would sometimes the problems are just acoustic. It's a great big huge reverberant theater or something, and you have to get used to what it sounds like in there and what you can do. So
Got it.
mhm.
So, what's the first tour that you go on where you're actually
the
in
first
very unfamiliar places?
the first tour I went on was with Tad, and it was their first tour on the album God's Balls. Uh,
A wonderful
and
album.
yeah, and it was a U.S. tour, just going around playing small clubs,
Yeah.
just the band and myself.
How'd it go?
Uh, it was fun. We had fun.
Did you like being on the road?
Yeah.
Did you also tour manage?
Uh, we didn't. No, they tour managed themselves. There wasn't. I mean,
Right.
I
That's nice.
guess you know what? I guess we didn't really call anybody the tour manager, but I was collecting the money and I was reading the map, trying to find the clubs. So
Were you checking people into, were you guys sleeping on couches or checking into
we weren't sleeping in any hotels. We were sleeping with we were sleeping with Greg Dooley in
wherever you could sleep,
yeah,
right?
we
Wherever
slept
there
with
was.
bands we met, whatever. There might have been a few times where we had to break down and, spend some money on a hotel, but usually not. So yeah, it was a blast. It was fun. I mean, at the time, I didn't really have any other major career prospects going on. I was working at Muzak and tape duplication, and
God's Balls is 89 or early 90.
maybe 88, 89. Yeah.
Okay. So you're young too. You got little responsibilities. You're like, this is the life.
Right. Well, I mean, we were just mute. Actually, so for the first tour, Muzak let us go, and they let us have our jobs back when we got back. Both
Well,
Tad
fuck, half the staff went on tour.
yeah. Well, so we did that tour, and I had also been doing like local shows with Nirvana, but Nirvana was touring, I think, on Bleach at the same time as we were out on God's balls for Tad. It's funny every time you say it, but we were crossing paths with Nirvana a few times. We hung out with all together in New York at Janet Billig's apartment, playing the Pyramid Club. Uh, and Nirvana didn't look like they were having much fun at that time, but we finished that tour. We all go back to Seattle, and then there might have been some more local shows. And then it turned out that Tad and Nirvana were going to do this European tour together. And
It was
it
the
was
big like here comes Sub Pop tour.
right. It was just small clubs, but and for some reason, Jonathan and Bruce thought it would be good if I was along on this tour with Tad and Nirvana, just because I was pretty. I was the one person who could be trusted to remain calm and keep things together, I guess. But both of the bands liked having me around. They told me, there's nobody's getting paid, but we'll fly you over there and you'll get per diems and eat and and
You go
it
to
sounded
Europe.
great. Yeah, go to Europe. I never thought I was going to get to see Europe in my life. It's like, of course I want to go to Europe. Yeah.
Right.
And so I really got off on that. I loved the travel. I mean, like, guys, we're in Rome, let's go see the Colosseum. And some guys were into it and some guys were just, some people uh,
Sure.
weren't excited about that. But for me, it was really exciting to go see Rome and Paris and London. Are you kidding me? Yeah. Budapest. Yeah. Lots of weird gigs, a few really great ones. Um, it was grueling though, like very few days off, 9 of us crammed into a passenger van.
Were you guys driving yourselves around or did you have
We had a European tour manager slash driver.
that is handy?
Yeah. So he did all the driving and the tour managing. He was out of Netherlands because the booking agency called Paperclip was Dutch.
A lot of rental gear comes out of Amsterdam.
Yeah, ours was out of London.
Oh, really? John
Yeah.
Henry's.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's interesting because our first shows were in the UK. We fly into London. We get. Oh, I was going to have a dog in the background too, but she's
Oh,
she's left the room. But
he stinks and he's wet.
oh, so we drive from London up to Newcastle and play this insane packed show, but Nirvana doesn't like the bass amp. Instead of, a big tube SVT, they gave them this solid state Trace Elliott. And
Right.
I'm like, guys, we can make this work. Just give it a minute. But they didn't like it. It's just too clean, not loud enough. So at the end of the night, they, perforate the speakers of this expensive Trace Elliott from John Henry. So
Wonderful.
yeah. So instead of uh, driving to our next show, which is somewhere else in the north of England, maybe Birmingham or Manchester or something, we have to drive all the way back down to London and spend the next day trying to persuade John Henry to give us some different rental gear. And I don't think they would. So we still had to use the Trace Elliott head, and or maybe
With-
not, but we ended up using the Fender Twin as the bass amp head connected to a cabinet, and then they had a Marshall for guitar. It was a really kludgy backline setup that both bands had to share and get through this tour. We
right.
had one set of backline. Yeah.
Oh, I'm
Poor
sure
Dutch, poor Weezer.
the Tad guys were disappointed in this
They were a
scenario
little
where
bummed
the
that Nirvana was smashing equipment like before Tad was going to play. Yeah.
is that how the bill ran? Tad was headlining the tour.
They alternated.
Yeah. At
Yeah.
that point, it didn't
At that
matter.
time, nobody was more popular than the other. Yeah. It was all the
Right.
same. Mhm.
How long was that tour?
About 8 weeks, I think.
8 weeks.
Yeah.
First first trip out of the country. 8 weeks all around Europe.
Yeah.
What a fucking boot camp
There were
experience that
there
is.
were times when we didn't know if everybody was going to make it. Yeah, people got sick, people lost their voice. It was tough.
Right. Okay, so you guys come home and what's the vibe?
Uh
This is 1990 you said, yeah?
Fatigue. Uh we would have to check the year. So, yeah, Bleach has been out. Uh so and then
And Bleach did fine, but
well, nobody was getting
it
records.
wasn't Nirvana's first album then. It was like, oh,
It
it's
was Nirvana
album.
Bleach, but I mean, well, it didn't take long for the buzz about Nirvana to start, really bubbling up. I mean, even locally, like the thing about, I mean, Nirvana definitely had things that set them apart, which is basically Kurt's singing voice and their songs. There's plenty of loud grunge bands, but not everybody had that.
Right.
People noticed him right away. Like, have you heard that? Have you heard that Nirvana guy? He can sing like Clearwater. It's crazy. Like, like
Is that what they would say?
that's what some people. Yeah, like,
He can sing like John Fogerty.
but you know, Nirvana was special. Like people people gravitated toward them, and so fighting is kind of a strong word. I wouldn't say that Tad and Nirvana were fighting over me, but they were playing and they both wanted me to be there, and so I had to make a decision, and it kind of worked out that I started doing more Nirvana and less Tad. I mean, and to be honest, I saw more potential, like future with Nirvana.
Sure.
Like this could really turn into something.
If
But
only it had.
yeah, it didn't quite work out. But so I did some more like US club tours with Nirvana, short ones, just kind of in and out.
Did you do other stuff? Were you doing other things when you guys got home from that 8 weeks? How much downtime did you guys have before they took off again?
Um,
And did you have the job at Muzak when you came back?
well, when I accepted the European tour, I had to
Resign.
well, I told him I'm going to go to Europe for 2 months, and I don't expect you to hold my job open. So
Right.
yeah.
So you come back, you don't have a gig, but you're young.
No,
You probably have your rent's probably $200 a month.
I think I was just staying at my mom's at the time.
That's free.
Yeah.
Great.
And but I would just do more gigs around town for spare cash, and there were local gigs too to do. Like the Sub Pop guys would have me do a lot of stuff. I think I mixed most of the Sub Pop 200 show. Remember
You,
that box set, Sub Pop 200? There was a big record release show for that. I think I did most of that. Um,
did you have a favorite band to mix outside of Nirvana?
uh, I did some stuff for the Fluid.
People
They
speak
were
very high. I don't know the Fluid, but people speak highly of them. Finn
yeah,
loves Fluid.
they were good. What was Finn doing back then?
Love
Was he like
Battery?
Skin Yard? Uh,
Skinyard?
when did Love Battery started a little bit later, but yeah, there was Love Battery. I would do that. Um, I ended up doing some tours with Love Battery later. Uh, so basically, just whatever of that kind of scene, I was probably involved in. I can't remember exactly when Nirvana went back out. I was home and Nirvana was already out, and Poneman called me and said, "Hey, will you fly out to Philadelphia and hook up with Nirvana for the rest of their tour? They're struggling a little bit." So I did that. So I think that was the first thing I did exclusively Nirvana after the Tad and Nirvana tour.
Right.
And at this time, they were sort of grumbling about being on Sub Pop. It's like, we're not making any money. People can't find our records. You know, they started to think about, what's going to be next after Sub Pop. And they were starting to write some of the songs that later ended up on Nevermind and In Utero. And, not long after that, they did that session at Smart Studios with Butch Vig,
Right.
where they recorded things like Dive and Polly and things like. So that was originally intended to maybe be another Sub Pop record, but it ended up just being like demos for Nevermind. And that was the time that they parted ways with Chad Channing. Um,
Did Grover drum with him
oh yeah, we did.
as an interim?
So in between there, we also did. Yeah, we did a tour opening for Sonic Youth, which was super fun.
And
And so this
and
was
Dale
back.
drummed on the whole tour?
Dale Crover drummed on a tour. It was just a West Coast tour.
Sorry.
Yeah.
That's that must have been fucking
Oh, it was
best.
monster. Yeah, yeah. It was monstrous. I mean, he had already played with them before on some of the recordings,
Right.
but so, but yeah, having Dale, uh, yeah, that was a monster lineup. The
He's
band
so
was
good.
the band was really on fire at that time. Um, but while we're in, so Dale was living in San Francisco. I think the Melvins were based out of San Francisco at that time. So we went down there and stayed at Buzz Osborne's house. And one night, uh, we went to the I Beam to
Yeah.
see this band Scream, and I was standing there with Chris and Dave watching Scream play, watching Dave Grohl play the drums. I didn't know who he was at the time. Maybe they did. I'm sure Buzz did, but
He was just the drummer of Scream.
he was just the drummer of Scream. Yeah, and Kurt said something. I remember it very distinctly. I don't remember the exact words, but he said, "That's the kind of drummer we need." And so we continue, doing the Sonic Youth shows, and then sometime after we were back home, uh, I guess they found out that Scream had fallen apart on tour, and somebody, I think it was through Buzz, that Dave got a hold of Kurt and said, and they had him fly up and try out. But this was also around the time that Nirvana played that Motorsports Garage show with Dan Peters from Mudhoney on drums.
Yeah.
That was a huge, crazy show, and I didn't know any of this was going on, but apparently, Dan thought he was going to be in Nirvana, but at the same time, they were also talking to Dave. So that was sort of a little bit awkward, I guess. But uh, anyway, then Dave's in the band, and Dave was great. He was just this enthusiastic young kid, real breath of fresh air, tons of energy. You know, he could sing backups, which was cool. So, um,
What was the what was the difference in mixing shows? All of a sudden, you had another voice to mix in, so now you had three voices.
Well, Chris didn't sing.
Ever?
He would talk between songs, but not sing. You could turn his mic off when the band was playing. Well, and because there's so much noise on stage, you do want the mics off if you're not using them.
Right.
But no, having Dave sing harmonies was great. I mean, it makes the poppy songs more poppy.
Yeah.
So.
And as far as the introduction of his drumming into that dynamic,
well, it was more powerful. It didn't sound great at first. It's funny, we did a show up in Victoria on a little small run of shows, and I said, "Man, the drums are not sounding very good. We should put new heads on them." He was like, "Oh, really? What does that do?" I mean,
right.
I can't believe I'm the guy who introduced putting drum heads on to Dave Grohl. But yeah, so we went to the music store and got some new pinstripe heads and put them on there, and now they're going dum 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 dum. It was great. So
that's fucking hilarious.
Before he had just bashed them so hard that they had no tone left.
Right.
And he always did bash the hell out of them. Of course.
Perhaps because his heads were so dead, that's why he developed a style where he played so hard, because he had
with the sticks backwards, like big, thick 2B sticks.
Right.
Backwards.
Amazing.
So clubs. Yeah.
So when they go to make Nevermind, what are you doing?
Well, I wasn't there for the recording of Nevermind. I wasn't.
Right. I mean, what in your life? What are you doing? Are you going out with other people?
Yeah, one thing I did back around those years was I introduced myself to the Posies.
Oh yeah.
I was standing out in front of the Vogue, and I knew the Posies had some big shows coming up. Like Bumbershoot. I think they were going to play the Coliseum at Bumbershoot
with Soundgarden.
Yeah. And so I see Mike Musburger over there, and I guess he knew who I was, but I said, "Hey, hi, I'm Craig." I said, "Hey, who's going to mix your show?" And he said, "Oh, you want to do it?" I said, "Yeah, I'll do it." And so that was and I mean, the Posies, but yeah, they became like some of my very best friends, of course, that
I
talk to this day. So, and also they got signed to Geffen a little bit before Nirvana did, so they had the whole hype and energy going and a new release. So I worked with them like a lot on the release of Dear 23, doing shows. But yeah, I was not involved with Nirvana recording Nevermind. I did do a demo session. Like I talked them into letting me record them. I took them into the Music Source one day.
Record who?
Nirvana.
Do you still have the tape?
Well, a couple of the songs got released as B-sides of the CD single of Smells Like Teen Spirit. I could go get it.
Did you, without prying into your business too much, did you get any kind of back end on that? Because that's a big fucking deal.
Well, this was just a CD single, like for radio promo or something.
Oh, okay, not like CD single that got sold at the warehouse records.
Retail, maybe it did. I don't know, but no, I did not have a deal for that particular recording.
Yeah,
but later in life, it'll come up. But so, I naively thought that, oh, if this session goes really great, then maybe they'll let me work on the record. But of course, I was a 24-year-old kid with no studio experience. No, they're not going to let me.
Right.
You know, real producers are going to produce the Geffen Records Nirvana album. But the first time I remember hearing Nevermind is that it's still just the four of us in Chris' stinky van, and we're driving down to LA to film the video for Teen Spirit and then go out and do some dates opening for Dinosaur Jr. But so Kurt pops this cassette in the boombox, and he goes, "Listen to this. Tell me if you think it sounds too much like the Pixies." And it's Teen Spirit. I'm like, no, it's great. Yeah, I can hear what you did there, but no, that's incredible. Like, but when I heard that, I knew that, your life is going to change.
Right.
I mean, we didn't know what we all thought was it would be, they're going to be like Sonic Youth or Pixies level. That's what we thought,
Right.
Go around headlining the Hollywood Palladium or the
Who the
Paramount.
fuck could foresee what was about to happen? No one.
Nobody
Not
did.
even the people at
The record
DGC.
label? No. I mean,
No.
they didn't order enough records at first. They booked a tour in way too small of venues.
I mean, they were perfectly appropriate size venues, I'm sure, except that.
For the last tour, yeah.
Right. Well, right.
It was a lot of the same places they had already been, too. Yeah.
Right. How quickly upon the release, first, did you see a cut of the video? Because the video had a shitload to do with the success. As
totally.
did videos with all bands then.
Right. Yeah, it was the video taking off that was the catalyst for it. The video, I was there at the video on the day of the video shoot. So
it's always a different experience because you see everything. You view it. Your perspective is different. Yeah.
It was a long, boring day with a lot of waiting around. But so Kurt had a vision of how he wanted it to end up. But the director they hired, he wanted to take that even further and have this kind of narrative storyline. And Kurt wasn't into that at all. So the director and Kurt were butting heads all day. Kurt just wanted like punk rock chaos in a high school gym, which is how it ended up.
Right.
But the director wanted to have, more of a story.
Right.
And so they were butting heads about that. Novoselic was just sending me out on liquor store runs, basically. Right. I didn't have anything to do that day. I was just hanging out. So I took the rental car and went to the liquor store. And I had the new Teenage Fan Club cassette in the car, so I was happy.
What was the new album then?
That was Bandwagon-esque.
Oh, God.
All the same time, yeah.
Oh, so good. What a time for music.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, in between there, when Nirvana wasn't touring, I was mostly doing Posies at the time. Yeah. I actually recorded a Posies album that ended up not getting used as well.
What album is that?
Well, it wasn't used, so it never had a title. But
did any of those songs surface on other releases?
Yeah, like some retrospectives. One of them was called Definite Door.
Oh yeah, I know that.
Farewell Typewriter.
Was this between?
It was between
Dear 23 and Frosting.
Frosting on the Beater, yeah.
They
wanted it to be their record, but the record label said no. Do it again. Do more stuff. And so
I don't love the sonic sound of Dear 23.
Oh, well.
It's the Jesus and Mary Chain guy, right?
John Leckie?
Yeah.
Well, he was not only
Turns
that, he was the
he did a lot of shit in the
Dukes of
70s.
Stratosphere guy. Yeah, I mean,
Did he do like Pink Floyd? Did he work on some Pink Floyd shit or something?
I don't know, but they were trying to get all Sergeant Peppery. It was
Right.
only later that they figured out they could just be a basic rock band. But
Frosting, that's my album.
yeah, that's the Posies album, really.
That's
Um,
the one for me.
yeah, yeah.
So you're out with those guys
Hmm.
and this video takes off.
Yeah, yeah. So then we're playing all these, a few hundred capacity clubs, but there's 2,000 kids in town want to get in. The clubs are selling out like that. It's just mayhem because they're so packed. Uh,
So they have to relocate some
pushing.
shows pretty quickly.
No, that never happened.
They never
No, 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 no,
relocated
no.
shows.
Well, record labels love to do this. They call it an
Yeah, yeah.
underplay when you first go out. We're going to underplay it. It's going to sell out. There's going to be a big buzz. And then in a couple months on the second single, we'll go hit them again and we'll play the arena.
Right.
That's what they thought was going to happen. But with Nirvana, you don't get another chance to keep them out on the road for another, you know, 3 months because of all the personal problems that
Right.
came up. So, so that was it for Nevermind in the U.S. But we did some big stuff in Europe. We did big festivals, Reading Festival, Roskilde, all kinds of stuff like that. That was fun.
When the first big festival like that you did, what was
Mm-hmm.
that experience like mixing sound? Because that again is a completely different experience than mixing.
In a club or theater.
Yeah.
Well, I had done theaters, but it was what would have been the first one? The first, well, that movie, The Year Punk Broke.
Yeah.
So we were tagging along with Sonic Youth, doing big European festivals. So that was probably my first time doing those. Um, the console and the outboard gear is the same. It's over a bigger PA. It's outside, so you have to get used to what the whole system is giving you when you put the signal through it.
Were you guys doing any festivals that were big enough where you had relay stacks?
Delay fills, probably, yeah, but at front of house you don't really hear those because they're behind you.
And
um,
are they
you don't really
like
worry about
is
that.
that automated somehow?
Well, no, like
So
the system,
insane.
the if the system technician would have set that up and aligned the delay.
Right.
It's their job to fill the area. um, so no, I'm just walking onto the board during the changeover, doing as much of a sound check as they'll let me get away with, sometimes in the headphones,
Right.
and and you throw it up and go. It's a trial by fire. Like, how close can you get it in the first couple bars? It's a
Is
rush. It's awesome.
that was going to be my next question. So like that wasn't scary to you. You were excited and thrilled by that.
Yeah, yeah. If you're too scared, you shouldn't be doing it because you got to deliver right away.
Sure.
You know. But what I would focus on first is getting the vocal.
Right.
The vocals got to work. Everything else can be like close-ish, but the first thing you do, get the vocal working. Then for me, and so for me, it's what makes the song the song. So it's the vocal. If it's a song that starts with guitar, then make sure the guitar sounds right, and the bass and the music. So a big
Did they
thing
have
for
a
me.
good, what was their leadoff song? Did they have like a hello, ladies and gentlemen kind of thing so that you could get your shit together? You know the history of that song, right?
Oh, is that just the sound check song for them?
That's a sound check song, man. If
Yeah.
you listen to that song,
Are you
hello
ready,
there,
ladies and
ladies and gentlemen, because it's like
yeah.
it builds up an instrument at a time, and that was how they started their shows.
You know what Nirvana would do a lot of time? is just get on and play noise, just bash. You could just bash the drums going, and Kurt would just play some random chords and scream into the mic going, ah, and they would do that
Perfect.
for a minute and then bust into usually Aneurysm, I think was
Uh,
a show starter. You know that one?
yeah.
Boom, 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 but come on over and do the twist. Uh, that one. Uh, so that I think was a show starter, and that's a good show starter because it's got those steady, you know, toms. I love toms.
Right.
Boom, 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 boom. So yeah, like just get it up as fast as you can. So an interesting mixing thing for me doing Nirvana because it was only a 3-piece. Like you listen to a lot of other heavy rock bands, especially back then, and maybe still now. And this goes back to the vision of what you think it should sound like. But like they'll do kick drum that's as loud as the PA can possibly do, and they'll do subs as loud as the subs can possibly go, and then a little tick at the top with the kick drum, so it's all boom and tick.
Right.
And they'll carve out all the frequencies of the bass guitar and the guitar so that they all sit separately and you can hear each one distinctly. And that, but I treated Nirvana like one big instrument playing together, you know, and leave the mid range in there. So the bass and guitar, I mean, they played in unison a lot, you know.
Right.
So instead of a kick drum that's all carved out, like things actually sound bigger to me when you don't carve all the frequencies out as much. And so it would be just this really warm, melodic, huge thud that the kick and the bass and the guitar would do all together because that's the way Nirvana arranged their stuff, you know. It wasn't arranged like metal. It was dong 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 dong. Does that
Right.
make sense? So
Yeah, sure.
it was this huge
Just like fuzz on everything.
it was this huge musical thud that had pitch, you know. It didn't just have sub and sizzle. So that's what I thought was cool about Nirvana. And then I always I wasn't trying to be the loudest guy out there by any means. I mean, it would end up being loud, of course, but that wasn't my goal. My goal was for it to sound like music and for you to be able to hear the song that you've heard on the radio, you know? It should sound like that.
Right.
It shouldn't sound like some other version of the song because it's a concert where the engineer is trying to kill you with the kick drum, you know? I hate that. And
Yeah.
so that's my philosophy of mixing music. And over my whole career that went on to working with all different kinds of bands and then working at the Triple Door where I work with all kinds of music from all over the world, you know,
Yeah.
which is a whole other chapter where, but to me, the beauty of music is musicality and the connection between the people on stage and the people trying to listen to it. And so that doesn't anything that gets in the way of that connection to me is distracting and wrong. It should sound like what you're looking at.
Right.
That's
So after the Nirvana, so the Nirvana thing grew and
yeah.
grew and grew and grew and then came to a screeching halt and you're home.
Yeah, well, yeah, as big as Nirvana was, they were never like the whole time Nevermind is out and I think when Nevermind went number 1, we were doing a few shows opening for the Red Hot Chili Peppers and that's when Nevermind went number 1.
Right.
A short run of West Coast stuff. Pearl Jam was the first band out of 3 on that tour. But my whole time with Nirvana, they were never a band that just ground it out for months on end on tour. It was always a month here, a month off, a couple months here, a couple months off, or short. Oh,
Right.
we're going over to do Saturday Night Live and coming back. So it was never a lot of super sustained touring. So in between that, I did a lot of Posies, did some Love Battery, uh, um, right before Nirvana was gonna go on tour for In Utero is when I got fired from Nirvana. I still don't know exactly why, and it doesn't really matter anymore. But
Right.
Out of that, when that happened, I got hooked up with Juliana Hatfield,
Oh,
and I did a lot of touring with her and her band, which was great. I'm really glad that happened, and I met those people. And then I bounced around a bit. I did a tour with Weezer,
what
and
era was that for them? Was that Pinkerton or was that the Blue album?
it was the Blue Album. It was the end of the Blue Album touring cycle. There was another guy that had done most of it, but they had gotten rid of him. So I
Yeah.
did like their very last US tour on the Blue Album, and that was a super fun tour because Teenage Fan Club was
Ah,
the opener on that, my very favorite band.
is that your
Uh,
favorite band?
One of them, if I had to pick a favorite rock band, yeah, they would be top five for sure.
If
People
you had
ask
to
me what
pick a favorite opener out of the two, out of the opening track of 13 or the opening track of Bandwagon-esque, what, because I think that they're similar songs vibe wise. They're aggressive and they have a long tailing.
Bandwagon-esque opens with The Concept.
That's right.
What opens 13?
13, it's
Norm, is it
hold
Normal
on.
Energy?
Huh?
Hold on. Oh, okay. Uh, yeah, I don't know. I love 13 though. Very underrated album.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it must be Hold On, right? Is that the name of the song? Here it is. Hang on. Sorry, hang on.
Okay.
Same thing.
Uh,
Wait a minute. Were you also playing second guitar in the Mises?
oh, briefly, uh, the story of how I met Joe. Uh, it was a Posies show down at this weird place in Tacoma, like kind of somewhere on the outskirts of Tacoma. And the Mises show up to be the opening band. We have no idea who the Mises are. And they start sound checking, and I hear it, and it's the coolest freaking thing I ever heard. It's like,
Yeah, man.
it's like, who are these? It's like replacements kind of thing. That was, but it was, and they're playing some of their stuff. This is, the greatest Bible stories album stuff.
Yeah.
And so they're sound checking, and I go over and start jumping around in front of them while they're sound checking.
Uh, uh,
And so that was when we met the Mises, and we get to know each other, and they find out what I've been doing and stuff. And then one time, not long after that, I was in San Francisco, and they're going to play at some little club. So I go down to see them, and it's a really small place. It's super informal. And they're like, "Hey, Craig's here." And I go up to the stage and say to go, "Give me that guitar." And I start playing Don't Let the Soap Run Out. So they played Don't Let the Soap Run Out with me. Uh,
oh, great.
and then sometime later, I think 93, uh, Joe asked me to go on a little short California tour with them and play second guitar. Just one tour though. But
Because they were a three-piece before.
yeah, and that's really all they need. But
Yeah.
it was fun to be a Meese.
No, that's great, man. That's
And
like
then
I
so in
didn't do it
recent
again.
years they played a few reunion shows up here, and he let me play on some of those. So yeah, that
That's
was fun.
so great.
Yeah,
That's fun. So what is that? 95?
that would have been 93, 93.
93.
Yeah. And so yeah, I did the Weezer, and then right after Weezer, the Presidents had come out with their first album, Lump and stuff. And so Finn, they needed a guy, so Finn calls me, and I don't even go home after Weezer. He says, "Hey, we have a tour. Can you come and do it?" And at first I was like, oh man, I haven't been home. But then I thought, oh, I got to do it. Can't not do it. So,
It's another
so,
opportunity to mix a three-piece band. That's a fun live
or,
band. That was a
but also a band that's doing, reasonable size shows, you can't really turn that down. You never know when the next call is going to come. So,
and great songs too.
oh yeah, yeah, it was fun. And
So,
after that tour, I ended up, I got to record the President's second album for Columbia,
oh, amazing.
Presidents 2. Yeah.
Right.
And it actually did get released this time. So finally, I got to record an album that actually got released.
And also did okay.
Yeah, it did okay. It didn't do as well as the first one, but it
That
sold
first
like it sold like 500,000.
hard to follow up that first
Yeah,
one.
yeah. I wish it had done as well as the first one.
I bet you do.
But this time I actually did have a little contract and actually, you know, did get what, like, they asked me to do it and I was like, okay, but I mean, I didn't say this to them, but in my mind I thought, well, if I'm going to do this record that's going to come out on Columbia, I'm going to at least get paid somewhat like they would pay somebody else,
Sure.
I'm not going to, you know. So yeah, I got a little contract and I got a little modest nest egg out of that. And by this time also Geffen is starting to reissue some old Nirvana stuff and some old live recordings and stuff.
Yeah.
So like I didn't have like royalties on any of their major stuff, but they would say, here's what we're paying the mixers for these archival recordings. So
Right. It was some mailbox stuff.
yeah, mailbox stuff.
I
And
like
I still
mailbox.
I still get a Nirvana royalty check for like a couple $100 every 6 months from some of these box sets,
Right.
where they used a ton of demos and live stuff and whatever. But
I mean, that's a sweet little surprise to 20
oh
years on, right?
yeah. They're
25 years on.
they're getting lower and lower. And
Sure.
then every 5 years, when there's an anniversary of Nevermind coming out or an anniversary of some show, all these magazines will say, "Hey, it's the 30th anniversary of Nevermind of this gig," like, or something.
Right.
And I've been interviewed for a lot of the books that have been written about Nirvana. People say you should write a book. I'm like, oh, the books have already been written.
Right.
But
When you took up the residency position at the Triple Door,
mhm.
did you have any idea that you'd be there for that long? Because you were there for quite a while.
Yeah, 14 years. Um, well, at the time that uh, it was Andrew McCaig who called me about that, because he was working there at the time as the booking agent.
I forget that.
Yeah. And at the time, I had a job where I had been for 5 years doing audio for corporate events, which was okay. But uh, when he called me about this, it was a chance to get back into doing music.
Right.
And, at the corporate gig, you would get to do music like once in a while, but to get back to where you're doing music almost every day in
And
one
and pretty like, I mean, that's a
pretty
pretty
amazing music too,
prestigious spot.
really high quality
Yeah.
artists too. Like, so yeah, I went down there and checked it out and saw what they had in there and what was going on. And I took the job. And yeah, it was like, for me, I couldn't have designed a better situation for myself. I get to be at home and all these amazing artists are coming to me. As the house engineer, you don't get to mix all of them because a lot of them do bring their own engineers with them, but a surprising amount I actually got to mix myself. But
That's great.
and yeah, I got to work with, tons of tons of a lot of incredible musicians that I had not heard of, but also a lot that I had heard of. I mean, I got to do Robin Hitchcock, I got to do Kristen Hirsch, both solo and throwing muses,
Wow.
uh, Black Francis, and the
Right.
Pixies came and did an acoustic radio show. I got to do that.
Oh, that's cool.
Ton, tons of legendary
Did you
jazz.
tell them that you had a Pixies cover band?
You know, I did not, but they had actually heard of the Pixies cover band back in the day.
I mean, were you guys so for people who don't know,
Yeah.
you had this band that was it was the first cover band that I saw play where I was like, Jesus fucking Christ, I need to come up with a cover band idea because these guys can play, they pack the clubs out and you guys were great.
It was
Like it was
fun.
really good.
Yeah, yeah. We had all-star drummers. We had Mike Musburger and then we had Jason Finn.
Right.
Um, uh, but yeah, it was Jeff Barnes that really made that possible, and he and I had the idea to do it because he could sing, he could pull off the vocals.
Right.
But yeah, we weren't trying to do an imitation either. We were just rocking out on those songs, you know. So, but when you do that, it ends up sounding right. So
But the band is there videos of the band on YouTube anywhere? The band is called Number 13 Baby for people who are
there
listening and
isn't
aren't aware.
there isn't a ton of great video coverage of us that I'm aware of. I'm actually not aware of any. So
Oh,
yeah, that was
that's
before
unfortunate. Yeah.
video cameras, so probably
You
not.
guys didn't do any of those like the public access show, whatever, any of those
We
things.
did.
What was that thing called? 29 Live. You guys didn't do 29 Live?
We didn't do it. What was the radio show that was at Jack Straw Productions that Abe Beeson did, and it was on KCMU, or I mean KXP? We did that.
Sonic. Um,
We did a radio show, but we didn't do any TV shows.
yeah.
Well, because we weren't really trying to promote the band like a band. It's just a cover band, so you can't
Right.
really do that, you know.
Right.
But no, we had fun. Yeah, we would pack the Crocodile and
Yeah, it was great,
Numos and the
man.
Break Room and stuff. So then the actual Pixies had to start playing again and
Ruin everything.
ruin everything. Yeah. But the funny thing was, we went on a little West Coast tour, uh, just for fun, really. And we played at Spaceland in LA, and our opening act was David Lovering's magic show.
And what was it?
For him to do a magic show? Oh, he does this like science and magic show. Like,
Really?
yeah, yeah. He was doing this like when the Pixies weren't playing. And so, and he doesn't know that he's opening for a Pixies cover band. And
No.
so, yeah, he didn't know. He also didn't care. But anyway, you know,
Did he sit in?
we were doing our sound check, and he arrives and he was like, "Oh, they're doing our stuff." Like, what? And so yeah, we're hanging out back with him. Yeah, we're a Pixies cover band, and he's like, and then he starts talking about, "Oh, are you doing this song or this song? Let me see your set list. Oh, that's a good one. Yeah. Oh, we never played that one."
Did he sit in?
No, no.
That'd be fun.
That would have been fun. At the time, he was probably, you know, out of. I don't know if he could have played a Pixies song at that time. You know,
What's the song that he sings?
La La Love You.
Did you guys do that one?
Yeah, with
He
Finn
could have
singing.
sang,
We
huh?
did that with Jason Finn singing.
Really?
Yeah, we made Jason Finn sing it. Yeah, yeah. Imagine his voice singing that. Yeah.
I can. I've spent some time in a practice room and on stage with him, and yeah, that's incredible.
So yeah, that was. I'm glad you brought up that band because it's something I don't always remember to think about that. But yeah,
That must have been a pretty fun time, though.
it was super fun. Yeah, we did that for. We did that from about 1998 to 2003.
Right.
You should, on the caption of the couch riffs, you should put that in there. Number 13, baby.
I certainly will. Number 13, baby.
Yeah. But so It was from number 13 baby that I met my wife.
Is that right?
It has given me the family that I have now. Yeah, everything in my life I owe to music. Yeah. Yeah, she so she saw my band, she saw us playing at the, I think it was called the Break Room at the time,
Yeah.
or maybe Chop Suey. She saw us there. She was on a date with another dude, but and then I had I was single and lonely at the time. I had a personal ad up on the Stranger Personals.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. And she saw that ad and she said, "Oh, there's that goofy looking guy from that band."
Wait a minute. How did she? Was there a photo of you in the
Yeah,
Stranger?
yeah. Yeah, yeah. On the online personal ads.
Oh, online.
Yeah. But it's funny because the guy that she was there on a date with, he was really into us. He was like, "You got to see this Pixies cover band. They're great."
Oh,
But
you ever run into him?
no, I never met him.
Yeah.
I don't I don't think they weren't
Yeah.
in a serious relationship or anything. But yeah, then she she answered my ad because she
Amazing.
saw she saw me playing in number 13 baby, and then
Uh,
uh
was that can I
a couple
ask you
years.
questions about
Yeah.
that experience of making a online ad?
uh
Because, 10, I guess it hasn't been 10 years. Well, yeah, no, it's been fucking 10 years. 10 years ago,
mhm.
I was single
Uh-huh.
and I, I tried to do, like video app dating, but
Oh,
I lived in Seattle
yeah.
or, like a phone app dating, right? I lasted 24 hours because I just saw people that I knew because it's Seattle. It was a small place. And I was just like, I don't like this. This is uncomfortable. I know these
There's people on
people.
there that I know.
Yeah,
Well, so this was before apps. This was
right.
just like a website where you would write a profile of yourself, what you want to say, upload a picture, and then people just look at the ads and you can,
Took
contact them.
25 minutes to upload a picture back then.
Yeah, right, over a
Yeah.
dial-up modem. So then you can, contact this person and they'll get an email that somebody responded to their ad. So it was uh yeah, why couldn't I find a date normally? Well, I was, but I guess I sort of wanted to get outside of the same
Right.
group of people. So that's why I did that, I
No,
guess.
I admire that. I admire that.
So I don't know. Yeah, it kind of seems weird in retrospect because you would think, why isn't he meeting lots of people through real life? And I was, of course, I did. When I was touring, I met, tons of people.
Right.
So
Well, it seems like it worked out just fine.
yeah, we're
Yeah.
still here.
Yeah.
We have two we have two lovely children and a dog, and we have a lovely old farmhouse in the Central District where we've lived for uh, about 18 years now. So
Oh, that's great.
yeah,
You're not at the club anymore. Not that
no,
it matters. There hasn't been a show there in a year and a half.
they're open again.
They are.
Yeah, they're opening back up. They're doing shows
Holy
again.
shit.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, a couple years ago, I decided it was time to semi-retire from there because I'd been there for 14 years, and they do sort of the same annual cycle of shows. The same artists keep coming through.
Sure.
We do the same Christmas burlesque show every year, the same Halloween show, and a lot of it was great, and I love all those people, of course. But it was just like I've seen this movie enough times, and
Time to move on.
also I realized more and more how hard that schedule was on my family. I mean, I'm home, but I'm still, I'm working at night and half of the weekend. And so, uh,
Have you imagineered some way for you to carve out a career doing similar work what you've done in the last 30 years and
Well, I'm honestly in a state of semi-retirement right now, and it's okay. So I'm mostly a stay-home dad, which is great.
I like
And
that.
when some when some people play that would like to have me around, and it's something I'm interested in doing, I'll go do it. Um, Before the COVID shut down, there was a big Neil Young cover night at the Moore Theater, a charity show,
Yeah, I remember
and
that.
that was really fun. I got onto that. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
That's the last big music show I mixed, actually. Uh, so I don't know. I'm keeping an open mind and an open phone for, but I'm also not too worried. I mean,
Are you
I'm not.
making music at home? Are you making a lot of music? Recording and
Uh, I
fooling
dabble
around?
and goof around. My daughter, well, both of my kids are musical. My boy plays bass and guitar, and my daughter is really taking to the piano. She's studying with Jen Ayers.
Oh, great. That's great.
And, yeah, but she's really got a knack for piano. So uh, I'm supporting them learning music. I'm not a big
What does that feel
songwriter.
like to you?
Uh, oh, it's the best thing in the world. Um, what the kids are.
Yeah, picking up music.
Oh, it's great, great. The girl is really. I mean, they're not into it in the same way. The girl is super into music. Um, the boy is kind of into music, but he's also really into video games, and he's all and being an artist in other ways. But
Right.
so, but the girl is super into music, um, always singing songs, and she figures out songs by ear on the piano and plays them. But
Sounds familiar.
she's a great reader.
Sounds
Um,
unfamiliar.
yeah, yeah. She can actually she can read. She's because she's taking piano from a real teacher. She's learning to read music. So yeah, the sky is the limit for her musically. She's also a ballet dancer. Um, so I mean,
Oh, that's awesome, man.
yeah, yeah. So I'm not really worried about much else. I do a lot of tennis and paddleboarding
It
and
sounds like a charmed life.
kids stuff. Yeah, I'm pretty lucky. A lot of that luck is because of who my wife is that I'm able to do this. Uh, yeah, but yeah, as far as the sound thing, one thing I would be interested in is teaching young people. Like I've thought about possibly volunteering at somewhere like the Vera Project or something. But I'm conscious of being 56 years old and taking up space. Like I don't want to take up the space that a younger person could be doing because like
Do you
because
think that
when I was young, like there weren't I didn't have to wait for old guys to get out of the way. Like I was really lucky. Like I Nirvana didn't go hire some old experienced guy. They let me keep doing it. So
right?
I don't want to do that.
But do you think that I mean right now there's huge Nirvana revivalism with even if it's only being like t-shirt billboard style revivalism, but people seem to be into it almost more than ever right now. If you just
It,
pay attention to what I don't, but I guess what I'm getting at is, don't you think that having the experience with that band, it might also create an impression? It might be impressionable.
mm,
You might be sitting in an impressionable place to be of greater assistance than a younger person. Because I'm very aware of my age as well, and I'm just like, who
well,
cares? Look, I'm an old guy.
pretty much anybody that I would work with will also be an old geezer like myself.
Right?
Like a couple of years ago, I did some shows for Novoselich's new band.
He's
Giant
not
Tricks of
old.
Peace. Hmm?
He's not old.
He's he is one day older than me. we have the same birthday with 1 day difference. Uh, so
That's a different day.
yeah, and for me, the new bands that are coming up with young people, they're doing a new thing. They're doing something different. I mean,
Right.
there's so much. So yeah, they don't need some 56-year-old white dude in the van with them. Like they need their people.
Right.
If I could help their people in any way, I'd be happy to. But I mean, I kind of when I was that age, I didn't really want. I wanted to figure it out on my own. So
Sure.
but I could teach, I could train. I used to train a lot of my staff at the Triple Door because they would be younger people.
Right.
Guy that I mean, the guy that I had replace me, I mean, he knew what he was doing anyway. He's not that young, uh, but I was able to, tell him who should replace me and make sure he was all ready to go. So
Here's a question that I talk to a lot of people about, and I have to go pretty soon because I have a community meeting.
yeah,
Um,
this is getting long anyway, but yeah.
uh, what what did you do, if anything, to protect your hearing over the years of running sound? And have you experienced any fatigue? And
Um,
like I have tinnitus really badly.
yeah. Well, I wasn't on stage for a lot of it, and there's a big difference between being on stage and not being on stage. There were times on a run of Nirvana dates where the sheer volume almost every day would get fatiguing, and I would feel fatigued. I don't have tinnitus, and I don't feel like I have uh, a severe amount of hearing loss for my age. I did I mean, I didn't wear earplugs when I was mixing, but if I was at a show and I wasn't mixing, I would think about wearing earplugs if it felt uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But or I would just get out of the room if I was uncomfortable, to be honest. So I didn't go too far out of my way to protect my hearing as much as some people, and I think I've been pretty lucky because it could be a lot worse.
Right.
But mine is not too bad. I don't have tinnitus.
Last question for you.
Okay.
What's your favorite show sonically that you have attended and not mixed?
Hmm.
Surely there's a show which left a strong impression on you.
There have been a
You
lot
can
that
give
I
me
think
more
about.
than one.
Well, the first one that comes to mind is a couple of years ago. I was at the Sasquatch Festival because Giants in the Trees had played. And I think this was the very last Sasquatch Festival, but David Byrne played there on the big stage at the Gorge, and
Yeah.
that was really good. And this was the show where the stage has no equipment on it, and it's just like a big white box that they've put up with mesh, I think, or curtains, and everybody is wireless. All the instruments are wireless, the drums are on wireless mics, they're all on wireless headsets, and so they're all just dancing around everywhere, but it
Oh,
sounded really really good. That was a good one. um I don't know what else I can think of.
I didn't expect you to name a show that was outdoors because typically those shows, a lot of times sound can fly away.
It can be really, if the weather is right, outdoors can be really good, better than indoors.
Right. It could also be
um
really messy, right?
it can, yeah. If it's windy, forget it. You're sunk. But in
Right.
this case, we had good weather. It was a warm, still day. Honestly, the 14 years I was working at the Triple Door, I didn't see much else
Right.
because you're there 5 nights a week. um a lot of incredible sounding shows there, most mixed by me, but a lot that weren't mixed by me. uh, so it's hard to say. But yeah, there's There's a lot of great work being done out there. There's a surprising amount of not so great work being done out there.
Some things
Or
never change.
even, I'm not going to name any names, but I've been to see some really big famous rock bands in some really big venues and thought, really? That's the mix?
Right.
Um, by engineers that are supposed to be prominent in the industry too. And I think, really? That's the mix? So, um,
Right.
uh, but, I've had to, you have to accept that not everybody is going to do it the way you think it should be done. So,
Right.
um, people usually like the way I did it, and that's really all you can do. Like if people like it, then it's good. So
I
um,
couldn't agree
yeah,
more. I
and
couldn't agree
all I
more.
was ever trying to do was help make music that people liked. So
Yeah.
and not shitty music that you hate. So
um, I want to thank you for coming on the show,
yeah,
and also
thanks for having me. That's great.
tomorrow I think because I didn't have an episode for Monday
Hmm.
this week, I didn't have a new episode. I might release this tomorrow or Thursday.
Okay.
Um, so we can talk about the episode that you performed in. You performed in uh, uh, a Cars song,
Oh
which
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I released the last one, and you had, and I had already been building this episode, and you had commented on the post where you were like, if you ever do another one, or if you ever do this one, like,
Uh
I know that stuff inside and out. And when you say that, I believe you, because I feel like you knew the Pixies stuff inside and out. And I was like,
huh.
I just said without even second guessing for a second, well, I'm building just what I needed, and come play second guitar. And you were like, great.
Yeah.
And so there it was, and it's done. It's going to come out tomorrow, which is probably yesterday or maybe today,
Yeah.
depending on when you're listening. Maybe it was last year. Future
Yeah,
people.
thanks for having me on that. It's an honor to be part of the club of people who have played on couch riffs. Like I don't really feel worthy, but like
It's a
something.
funny thing. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's a pretty funny gag, couch
Uh,
riffs.
that's about the only song you've done that I could pull off. So
Oh, I doubt that. Give
well,
it.
I sure as hell couldn't play on Hocus Pocus.
I'll bet you could. Those aren't.
I could
I
figure
mean,
something out, I guess, but
I couldn't solo on that.
no.
I'm not that fancy.
You have a lead on that, don't you?
No, I play bass. I
Oh,
play
okay.
bass on that
There's
one.
another
Yeah.
one. Oh, you played some leads on Renegade.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I can play
Yeah, yeah.
solos, but that one,
Hmm.
the boy, like,
Yeah.
what I've learned in this whole process? When to get out of my own way and
Yeah, yeah.
get the right person for the job.
Sure, sure.
Hopefully.
Styx was my favorite band as a kid before I discovered punk rock.
Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. I was a total Styx head. Oh yeah.
Pretty lovable. I mean, that song in particular, Renegade, I
Mhm.
loved.
I really loved the Pieces of Eight album.
Fuck, I loved Best of Times too.
Grand
Fuck it.
Illusion and Pieces of Eight. Oh, they lost me at Cornerstone.
Yeah. I'll take like I get into
That's when
all
I
of
got
it.
off the Styx train.
Yeah. You put the
Yeah.
sticks down.
Yep, yep. I put the Styx down.
Well, just what I needed came out great, and you're
Did you even use my audio?
yeah. Are you
Okay.
kidding me?
I don't know.
Because there was already that there was the lead guitar part cast already. I was like, well, I explained it to you before. I was like, well,
Had she already played?
Had she already?
Yeah.
When you got it?
Uh-huh.
No.
Oh, okay.
No. And so the juicy bits were sort of cast. They were booked already. So I was like, yeah. I felt badly because you were like, I would
I'm just
love to
happy.
do that if you ever do it. And I was like, I'm actually already doing it. I'd love for you to do it.
I'm just happy to be here, really.
Me too. Listen, ma'am, I got to be at my thing in 10 minutes.
All right, get out of here.
We're going to go complain about neighbors.
Oh, sounds like fun.
Yeah, it's going to be great, man. It's going to be great.
All
So,
right.
again, thank you so much.
Oh, you
And,
bet. It's great to hang out with you.
you know, I can't wait to see what your kids end up doing with music,
Yeah, yeah.
what that does for them.
I'll send you some videos.
Do it. I would love to see that.
All right.
All right, buddy. Have a great night.
All right. Thanks. You too.
Bye.
Bye.